Today we're reviewing videos from people who made the decision to come off their psychiatric medications and what happened to them. It's a decision that's often dismissed or discouraged, but for many, it can become a defining chapter in their lives. Coming off these drugs can be incredibly difficult and sometimes even life-altering. And so I'll be sharing my perspective as a psychiatrist who's worked with hundreds of these patients to help you understand what's real, what's rare, and what the system often gets wrong about the complicated process of coming off psychiatric medications.
I'm weaning off of an SSRI that I've been on since I was like 12, and it is horrible, and I'm just like really curious if anyone else has had this experience. So I started taking Zoloft for depression and anxiety when I was a kid, and it worked so well that I just like stayed on it, and I just stayed on it, and I stayed on it, and I stayed on it. Well, I've been wanting to do a sleep study.
I mean, the first thing I'll comment on is just how she looks. She looks like she is in a lot of pain at the moment. She looks like she's just been crying and she is very dysregulated from this.
I feel like no matter what, I am just always exhausted and falling asleep like throughout the day. I could literally take 5 naps in a day. So I had a consultation with this.
And so this is something that I see a lot with people who are on SSRI antidepressants for years or decades sometimes. They describe feeling fatigued and tired all the time. They have low motivation. They feel like they never have enough energy. Sometimes they feel blunted as well, like they're just floating through life, and they have this high background anxiety. As soon as I start to see someone complain of like excessive fatigue all the time, who's getting enough sleep and all of that, I start to think that their antidepressant has actually started to go toxic on them. It's a condition called Tardive dysphoria. I'll have my editor put it on the screen, but you can search for it.
Patient with this sleep clinic, and they basically said like, you will not do the sleep study unless you are fully off of your Zoloft. And I was like, I can't, like that terrifies me. Like I have not lived without this medication for a really, really long time. And they said, if you don't get off of it, we're not going to do it. And so after thinking about it and talking to
guys, this is not like a simple decision to just get off an antidepressant that you've been on for 12 years. I think she said she got on this when she was a teenager as well. This is someone who's gone through a huge portion of their central nervous system maturation with an SSRI on board. And to pull that out while someone's in their 20s for a sleep study quickly, guys, this is like a potentially like an 18-month to 2-year process to do something like this, maybe even longer. And so to just come off your antidepressant is just madness for this.
Therapist and my psychiatrist, I decided that I was going to try. And so starting in November, I started weaning off of the medication. It was 150 milligrams. I did every 2 weeks, I went down.
Just so you know, this video was posted in February, so about 3 months later.
Down 25 milligrams. And I was basically doing this on my own because the psychiatrist that I saw was like, oh yeah, we only see people once and then never again. And I'm like, great, that's...
Yeah, so this is how a lot of people are told to taper. They're just like, halve the dose, halve it again, take it every other day. And the doctor's like, oh yeah, I'll just see you every 2 to 3 months, and you'll just figure it out. Obviously, you can see the result that this has happened, that this has caused this poor woman is she's really suffering, but this is completely normal. Most doctors do not support patients with slow tapers, and they tell them that it's not a big deal, and it leads to this.
That's so helpful. Starting this past Wednesday, I have been completely off of it, and it is probably one of the worst experiences that I've had, and like no one warned me. Like I was really scared, but like no one warned me about like how bad it would be. I started feeling pretty bad last weekend. I was on 25 milligrams, and I was like, wow, I'm like feeling pretty depressed, and I'm pretty anxious, and like I feel very like irritable, and like I'm on the verge of a nervous breakdown. But it didn't get as bad until this Wednesday when I like completely got off of it. Wednesday, I just felt like very, very low and depressed and very anxious and like on edge. And then yesterday I started getting brain zaps, and so that has not stopped. Like every approximately 5 seconds I get the brain zap sensation. If you don't know what it is, like look it up, but it's basically feels like an electric current going through my brain, and it's like every time I move my eyes, yeah, it just happened. Every time I move my eyes or like turn my head or stand up, and it's very disorienting.
This is really common. Share in the comments below if this has happened to you.
Thank God I've experienced this before. Like if I ever skip a day of Zoloft, I experience brain zap. So I knew what it was. But the thing is now, like, there's no end to it. So like I just didn't know like when it was ever going to go away, because usually like, oh, I'll take Zoloft the next day and it's fine. But now like I can't do that. And the sleep study is in 2 weeks. Well, I literally just had to leave work early because I cannot function. I have been crying like 5 to 6 times a day, just sobbing out of nowhere. And so that's been great. On top of that, I've been super anxious. I just can't stop crying and I feel horrible. And like this is never going to end. I have never felt this awful about everything in years.
Something that I want to share about this is, I know we're all looking at a woman who is really having a hard time and struggling, and she's saying this is so awful. I feel like we don't really appreciate how bad this is. You look at someone like this and you're like, oh, she's having a bad day. You know, I've cried before. I've been really anxious before. It can't be that bad. No, you haven't. You have not experienced, unless you've gone through something like this, you do not know how bad it is. The amount of like physically, I would say emotional torture that antidepressant withdrawal is, I mean, it is far greater than anything that you could imagine if you haven't gone through it. And so it can also be really isolating to feel like this, because it's essentially torture. And no one really gets it. They'll say things like, oh, you know, it'll pass. It's fine. You'll just get over it. You know, you're just being a bit emotional. No. The level of emotional distress that this causes, is uncontrollable and severe.
And it's really scary. And it's, and I didn't think that I could do this for another 2 weeks. And so I ended up just finding out, which is very frustrating, but I found out from the sleep clinic that now I can actually go back on it and that like I don't really need to be off of it, which is very upsetting. And I asked them like, if I didn't need to be off of this, and I told you guys I've been on this for 13 years, like why do I have to get off it? And they're like, well, we'd prefer you to be off of it, but some people can't. Great. Now I honestly just feel like I failed and that like I was not strong enough to be able to do this. And I know that's not true.
Most people aren't strong enough to do what you've done, to come off 12 years of an antidepressant, you know, over the course of a couple months. Most people would be feeling like you are. In fact, 80% of people go into withdrawal when they come off after this period of time. And a big majority of them will have severe withdrawal symptoms just like you. And also, I mean, one day in the future, I hope this is actually going to be malpractice, what happened to you, because what they've done to you is they've thrown you into severe antidepressant withdrawal. And it can also, I mean, this can cause brain damage in some people, not everyone, but a portion of people that go through what this woman is going through will develop a condition called protracted withdrawal. I mean, it does not go away. So even if she gets back on the medication, these symptoms will not go away. So all of these problems that she's having, they just endure for potentially 2 years. And she's already told us the symptoms are so bad, she's had to leave work. And I see this in my practice. I see people who have become disabled, and they become disabled for several years because they develop one of these brain injuries from going into severe antidepressant withdrawal. What this is like is, I want you to imagine like you're a football player and you're getting hit in the head, or you've been pushed out of a building and you've hit your head. Severe withdrawal is kind of like a concussive injury for some people. Like it actually hurts them. And they have done this to this woman completely unnecessarily.
And I know that's not true, but like my brain is like not functioning properly right now. Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to go inside and I'm going to go take some Zoloft.
It's a good idea.
I mean, I guess 2 weeks on 25 milligrams was not it. This is not talked about enough. This is horrible. I'm just going to have to go slower, I think, than I already was. Which, by the way, the sleep clinic was like, why did you start weaning in November? You don't need that long. Bitch, I've been on this for years. Like, I'm trying to be, this isn't even slow enough. I feel horrible. Like, it's just.
The level of ignorance about how long it takes to come off these medications is astounding, but it comes from somewhere. Doctors have allowed themselves to be convinced by medical journals and compromised academics and drug company propaganda that antidepressant withdrawal is mild and self-limiting for everyone. It's not true at all for many, many people out there. This can be like a, 18-month to 2-year process to come off if you've been on it for several years. And they're telling her to go faster.
There is such a stigma around these medications, and it's just not good. If you are going through withdrawal of an SSRI and you're having a really hard time, just know that you are not going through that alone. Because I am going through this right now. I don't really know why I'm making this video. I don't even know if I'm going to post this. But yeah.
Okay, if she's been off for two weeks, there's a really good chance she's going to stabilize by getting back on them. Hopefully, Emily is doing okay now. So let's go ahead and check out this next video. Okay, this is Evan Holmes.
I've been going through protracted withdrawal from it for 2 years now. I was taking antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication for a few years due to anxiety that was so bad I could hardly leave my bedroom. It came out of nowhere, wasn't really about anything specific, and it wouldn't improve despite taking really good care of myself. And actually, my life circumstances were really good at the time as well. Eventually, I said fuck it and started taking 20 milligrams of Lexapro daily after discussing it with my doctor. It definitely helped with the anxiety, but it also made me really tired and kind of prevented me from really enjoying anything that much, although I didn't realize it at first because it was mild to begin with. It got worse over time, and 3 years later, I was a complete fucking zombie. No motivation, no energy, no enjoyment, brutal brain fog, grumpy as fuck, you name it. I went through a bunch of other testing to make sure it wasn't anything else, and then under the supervision of my doctor, I tapered off in about a month, which was way too fast, but I didn't know that at the time.
So this is like the other woman who was just describing how she was feeling more fatigued and tired over time. He is also likely developing a condition called Tardive dysphoria. This is a chronic toxicity that happens to people who are on SSRI medications. She was on Zoloft, he is on Lexapro, feeling flat, having no energy, having no motivation, brain fog, anxiety, he says feeling like a complete zombie as well. This is what we see with people who are on antidepressant medications long term. This was never seen in any of the clinical trials because none of them go longer than a year, but everyone just assumes that the drugs are safe and effective because the FDA approved them. But they don't realize that the drugs haven't really been studied that long. And so yes, when you have people on these drugs for several years, you start to get all these strange toxicities. Unfortunately, it is missed all the time. And people just tell them they have treatment-resistant depression and start upping the doses and piling on more meds. So I see a lot of this.
Else, and then under the supervision of my doctor, I tapered off in about a month, which was way too fast, but I didn't know that.
Just like the other girl, that is crazy. If you've been on these medications for 3 years and you come off after a month.
Aside from some typical withdrawal symptoms like vertigo, things improved slightly at first before getting even worse. I didn't care about anything. I had brain fog so bad it was literally hard to have conversations. Nothing made me happy. I didn't enjoy anything. I had no energy for anything. I would literally just fall asleep randomly throughout the day. Not exaggerating, I'd have to grit my teeth to do things like empty the dishwasher, cook, and get dressed. It was like I just completely stopped making dopamine.
What I would say, there was a little comment there that said he was taking Adderall and drinking coffee. If you're going through antidepressant withdrawal, you need to get off every single stimulant that you are on. Your brain is already in a massively stimulated state, and it could worsen your withdrawal and increase your risk of protracted injury.
2023 and 2024 were two of the worst years of my life. It was literally just a struggle to exist during the day until I went to sleep at night. Sleep was really the only break that I got from it. 0 out of 10 recommend. I did my best to take care of myself and be there for those around me, but it was a battle, and ultimately a big reason my relationship ended. At first, I thought it was just the unmedicated version of me, and I was just doomed to be depressed. But the symptoms were different than what caused me to start taking the meds in the first place, so I wasn't convinced. After doing as much research as my last 2 remaining brain cells could handle, I learned that it's actually quite common, especially for people who taper off too quickly or bounce around between dosages and medications. And it can be way worse than it was for me. Some people can't function at all and literally lose everything. I couldn't find anything to treat the symptoms or cure it, and by the time I figured out it was withdrawal, it was too late to go back on the medication because it can actually make things worse if you wait too long before doing that.
Okay, so he's talking about protracted antidepressant withdrawal. That's why it completely took out 2 years of his life, ruined his relationship as well, and he was essentially disabled. Now, people, I just want to remind people listening to this, especially those in the US, people laughed in Secretary Kennedy's face when he said that antidepressant withdrawal could be worse than heroin withdrawal. Well, you're hearing a story right now. And the difference is that when you come off antidepressants quickly, you can cause a brain injury that simply takes a couple of years to come off. This does not happen with opiates. There are millions of people going through this right now who've been completely ignored by the medical system. And then they wonder, why don't people trust doctors anymore? I mean, after COVID and after they've, done this to the American public, we've put 18% of women on these medications. Over 20% of Americans are on psychiatric drugs. And we tell them that they can come off in a month, and then they get brain injuries, and they're wondering why there's a crisis in public trust. So anyway, after this happens, as the guy says, if it's been longer than about 3 months, it's really hard to reinstate on the medication and make it stop. You just have to ride through it. And if you do try and reintroduce that drug later on, it actually makes the condition worse because your nervous system is so sensitized and irritable that when you start taking new drugs, you always have these really bad reactions.
The only thing that helped is just time passing as my nervous system recovered, and it's not a linear recovery. It's now been 2 years since I took my last dose, and I still have more days than not where I don't really have a ton of energy or feel very good or really enjoy much of anything, and it'll probably be another 12 months before I'm 100% recovered, but I'm doing much better than I was. I've heard some people are going on a decade with this shit, so I count myself very lucky.
Yeah, it's true. I know many of these people going on a long time, and I just want to say this isn't just, you just went into antidepressant withdrawal. I need you to picture that this is like someone got pushed out of a 2-story building or someone, got hit by a football player. This is a brain injury that is happening to these people. They have neurological damage, which is gradually healing over time. The prognosis for this is very good, and the vast majority of people I see are substantially better, just like he said, at around the 2-year mark. But there is more improvement that comes. Most people will have a full recovery or a near full recovery, but for some people, the injury is so bad that it goes on longer and longer. But it's not progressive. I just want to be clear. I still see it gradually improving over time, even in those folks who have had a lot of damage.
I was very upfront about it with everybody in my life, and I'm very blessed to have friends and family who are very understanding and supportive. I look at it the same way I look at a broken bone. Nothing to be ashamed of, it's just physiology. Just is what it is. I just make this video to bring awareness to this, since everybody and their fucking dog is on antidepressants.
Quite literally, and their dog. There's a lot of dogs who are put on Prozac these days. And the sad part is that many people got these COVID dogs and they were home all the time, and now they're back into work and the dogs are barking, the dogs are anxious, they're left inside houses all the time. Vets are super into giving dogs Prozac right now because it's a lot cheaper than taking them to a dog trainer or spending more time with the dog or walking it more or changing your life. And so more and more dogs are medicated with Prozac, and that's really sad.
And nobody even knows this is a thing, so they're unlikely to address it properly if they were to experience it. I also think it's important to show people that even somebody like me who has a fantastic life in a lot of ways can still be dealing with some shit.
Okay, so let's wrap this one there. Yes, this is really common. Everyone knows someone on psychiatric medications, and it's likely someone in your life who's gone through brutal antidepressant withdrawal. It's much more common than people believe. All right, so let's check out this next video.
I spent 3.5 years on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication, only to come off of them and get all of those feelings back. So basically, nothing was fixed. The pills just masked all the symptoms.
Guys, this is how the drugs work. If you have anxiety and depression for legitimate reasons in your life, which is the majority of people who get put on these medications, the problems are going to be waiting for you when you come off.
I spent a year on gut health supplements and improving my gut health, stopped taking the supplements, and don't have any of the feelings anymore. It's just crazy to me that not once my doctor mentioned gut health, my diet, my lifestyle to help with any of my anxiety or depression. The thing they did was provide pills.
Yeah. So most people think that, you say, do a dietary intervention for your mental health, and the person is obese and they look physically unwell and they roll their eyes at you. They're like, why would I do that? Obviously that's taking a water pistol to a firefight. And they just assume that because doctors never talk to people about diet. They're not interested in it. They're trained on using drugs. And so they kind of diminish it as this little thing on the side that isn't really real medicine. But listen, when Americans are consuming 60% of their calories from processed foods, and they are very unhealthy because of this. They just look unhealthy. Have you been in an airport recently? Just look at the people walking through the airport. We are in a sick country at the moment. And yes, if you clean up your diet, if you improve your gut, you will start to feel better. Your brain is connected to your body through your neck. And if you are physically unwell, you're going to have a lot of these symptoms. And so dietary interventions, they're more powerful than antidepressant medications or psychiatric medications. You have to try them first.
I also learned that antidepressants and anti-anxiety pills are so bad on your gut health. And your gut health is directly linked to your mental health. So you're never really improving anything. If you're wanting to come off them one day, start focusing on your gut health.
Okay, so that's not for everyone, but when someone comes to see me and they say, no, I'm just an anxious or depressed person, it's coming out of nowhere, my life is pretty much fine. I always think, well, what's the number one cause for unexplained psychiatric symptoms? I think physical health problems, and particularly gut problems. And so that's not going to work for everyone. You might have legit life stresses going on, but if it's coming out of nowhere, you have to consider changing your diet. Lots of videos on my channel on ketogenic diet and the paleo diet. I would check that out. It could be really helpful. All right, let's check out one more.
It has officially been 1 week since I have been off of my antidepressants. I've been on this shit for 19 years. And for my personal journey, I knew this was time.
Look how young she is, by the way. I mean, we have so many kids who we put on these drugs while they're, 10 or something. She looks like she's in her 20s. And so she was likely medicated as a child. And I'm seeing this all the time.
This was time for me to really get off of them because I'm not afraid of my pain anymore. I'm not afraid of what lives within me. And I have all of the tools and the most amazing support system to really walk this path now. And the last week, I've experienced a plethora of withdrawal symptoms, a lot of brain zaps, a lot of shakiness, lots of nightmares, lots of dense, dull, really low energy that I can feel coming out, nausea, all the kinds of good stuff that your body has to go through when it gets off of this shit. Anyways, the last week for me has been beautiful in a lot of ways, really intense, but I've been feeling emotions. I've always been a very emotional person. I mean, that's the reason why, I had to go on these things was I was feeling too much and I didn't have the tools or resources or the support to really understand what was going on within me.
How sad is that you can have a very emotional teen, is what it sounds like. And instead of getting the support to deal with that, she's been on medications for 19 years.
But I've been crying at so many things hit me. And before, it's so interesting to observe myself feel these little emotions, because things like that were similar to what I would be crying about this week would happen in my life, and I would never cry or feel connected to it. And I just feel deeper. And my boyfriend and I have been together for 6 months, but he goes to me this week. He was like, babe, I can feel you now. And my friend calls me. She's like, dude, you just feel different to me. She's like, I feel like I have access to you. And I'm like, oh my God, so crazy how much those things were blocking me. And I'm not saying those are the only thing, there's a lot of wounding that I still have to feel and I still have to love and go within. But I'm shaking right now as I'm talking. That's another thing that's been happening to me is I feel myself just getting activated more and feeling just these sprouts of energy of just I'm fucking pumped and things like that, which has been really beautiful. But just to feel things deeper and to let myself open more. And I'm just not afraid to feel my pain. I'm at a place now where even when I'm running these programs of I want to run away, I want to avoid this, I don't want to feel this shit, I know that they're there because they want to be loved by me and they want to be felt by me. And so it's been 1 week of getting off of these goddamn things, and I can feel myself opening and connecting deeper. It's a big milestone, and thank you for being here with me. Let's fucking go.
Yeah, let's go. All right. So a couple of things I want to comment on this is, one, how relationships can improve when you come off these medications. You know, I work with people who have been on these meds, you know, for 20 years. And when they come off, they're like, I had no idea what was going on in my children's lives. Like, I was there, but I was on autopilot. People would be talking to me and I'd be kind of blunted, and I just didn't realize what was going on. And then when we get them off, they start to become so aware of the emotional lives of the people around them, and they're more attuned to them. And so the people are like, oh my God, you're just like there again. You've woken up. And so it can be really good for your relationships for some people. The other thing that I want to mention is I hope she did a safe taper. My suspicion is that she didn't do a safe taper because most people don't get good advice from doctors on how to do it. And so unfortunately, I see this situation a lot where people will be on meds for like, 10, 20 years, just like her, and they'll reach a point of maturity where they'll say, you know what? I believe in myself. I've learned skills. I'm in a great place in my life. The trauma, the things that haunted me in my past, I think I can deal with it. And then they're like, I don't want this anymore. And then they come off, and then they get this like, almost like a honeymoon period in like, if in the weeks after they come off, where they're feeling more alive and they get a taste of what it's like to be unmedicated. And then they get pounded with withdrawal. That doesn't happen to anyone. So a week off is usually like a honeymoon period. Some people, they won't go through severe withdrawal and they'll recover. I'm praying that's what happened to her. But I do see some people who get this honeymoon period, and then if they haven't tapered properly, then the bottom falls out, and then they need to get back on the medications and do a slower taper. But whatever the case is for Ellie here, I really hope that she is successful in being off the medications, and I'm really pumped for her. Okay, so there you have it. That was my review on 4 different stories about antidepressant withdrawal. I really hope these stories resonated with you. If you have your own story about coming off antidepressants and what it was like and why you decided to do so, please drop it in the comments below this video. If you liked this video, you're not going to want to miss this one over here.